Let us remember that we are in the holy presence of God. As human beings, we're kind of hardwired to ask kind of some basic fundamental questions. What some might consider, spiritual or religious questions. Things like, what is the meaning of life? Why is there suffering? Is there a God? Is there life after death? And I want to talk about that last question in particular. Is there life after death? Because a lot of times when we're wrestling with that question, the answer that we may discover or that we're trying to find out, it really isn't so much about is there life after death as much as how am I going to live my life right now? How am I going to live with that answer to that question kind of in the forefront of my mind? And the important part of that question isn't, is there life after death? The question really comes down to, is there life before death? It's a matter of how am I going to live my life now? How am I going to be that individual of virtue? What is my life going to look like now? The after death part really isn't what we're trying to get at. It's how are we called to live our lives right now? We're in the middle of the International Lasallian Days for Peace. And this upcoming week here at St. Joe's, we're going to be focusing this week on these International Days of Peace and reflecting how are we living our lives now to bring peace into the world, to share God's love, to share that gospel message in our lives. Because, again, it's important. Is there life before death? And how are we living that life now? Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Now, in the present moment. And so as we begin to observe these Lasallian International Days of Peace in this week ahead, my question is there life before death? How are we called to live and bring God's kingdom into the world in the present moment? How are we called to bring life into our own families, into our communities, into our world now and today, so that we can go forth and live Jesus in our hearts forever?